Welcome to the Aus7 20th Anniversary Forum. As we can see, we can get many people turning up today. A few might turn up.
I suppose I might start with some better news, but new projects. I've got samples up the back of the MLVs that it is a re-release in a sense because Peter Krause had done them previously, but we've changed them, but added a lot more detail underneath them. We're also doing them in the 5 different versions, so there'll be UMEs, FMEs, the TME, which is the pipe load wagon, but also a later one for hopefully maybe starting to encourage some later period modelers in. So we've got seat containers, the GMEs. So they're basically just got the different deck on the top of them. So I've got the pilots up there. They should be available in about 4 or 5 weeks. I'm waiting on tech calls and we've got to pack and produce everything. But anyway, appreciate the feedback on that. Also, I am working on the BSVs. I was planning to have them first, but there's a bit more work. And also a BCW as well, which again is a re-release, but it's done differently to how they used to be done. So I'm trying to recover some of the older kits as well as try and produce some newer items. On not such good news, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that DGH have folded. So it's been a mad scramble to get our tooling out of there. Yeah, so that's not good news, but it wasn't because of the train business that they failed. It was their biggest part of their business was hardware and reproduction hardware. They cast a lot of white metal. They also did giftware in pewter, and Chinese imports basically killed them. And that was the reason why, because trains were probably 10-15% of their business. It was quite small.
Okay. Today, talking about making gum trees using the Sedums plant. Basically, I'll break the presentation into 5 segments. Firstly, what is the ideal gum tree? Secondly, what is Sedums? Then talk about harvesting and preparing the tree material, modelling the tree structure, and then lastly, painting, colouring, and final detailing of the tree. These are not my ideas. I stole them all from Dan Pickard. He's a guy down in Geelong, so I've taken his ideas as the basis and then rearranged them to make them work the way I want them to work. Sedums is the plant type. Autumn Joy is the actual variety. So as the name implies, Autumn Joy, because that's when the pretty flowers are, and that's when you can buy it in the nurseries. Obviously nurseries don't make much money selling green plants, they like to have the flowers on. There's pictures of the sedums. As I say, it's a pretty little plant and it's growing, flowering, making branches. They're the smaller pieces and not cuts. Just select suitable sizes, put them in an angle, bend the wire in an angled shape. So that's how I make sedums trees.
That is terrific. Is that one of John's houses over here? It's a beauty.
Martin's going to give a bit of a demonstration. He's been doing some research for the last 6 months or more. Yep.
Good morning, gentlemen. So, I've been researching into these modules, and I've looked into this actually quite a long time ago, probably since for about 10 years. I was looking at possible modular standards. I looked at what the Gauge Oak Guild did. I looked at stuff that other people have done in N-track, T-track, various club standards. And the thing that I kept coming back to was something based on a thing called Fremo. So this was, I think it started in Europe, and basically they specified, the only thing they specified was the end. As you can see here, a flat end is of a certain width, certain height, and certain location for 2 bolt holes. And it would be certain height from the floor. Exactly how you implemented that was entirely up to you. So this is built to a metric version of that standard, which was published by AMRA some years ago. There's a few features of the updates, and I've been following on Fremo. One of the things I had to update was the wiring standard, because they found the issue was that with the smaller gauge of wire they were using, it was fine on the analog controlled DC, but with DCC you started getting problems with signal drop once you got more than about 10 meters worth of modules, and was causing all sorts of issues. But I will think what I best now do is demonstrate how easy it is to put one up.
We'll just do that.
You'd see rusty machinery in a field, and I just always wondered what it was, so I thought I'd better talk about it, which had forced me to read some books. Most of my interest is on the earlier days, but this is mainly about cropping. So it's not focused on livestock. I've missed horses, and is it a medieval torture machine, or is it? No, basically is only there to break up the soil. So if you look at a plough with the curve, it's there to, as the soil lifts up, it gets fractured, and the big clumps get broken into smaller and smaller pieces. And so the whole ploughing process, and then the cultivation, running the cultivators through, which look like mini ploughs, is just to break up the soil so the plants can survive. And so that's what you're getting, all the work prior to planting. The planting, traditionally the broadcast, throwing seeds around, then you've got backpacks with hand crank to get a fixed rate of seeds going through until you get the seed drills. And then you get the combi seed drills, which basically do the cultivation, so they break up the soil after ploughing, or maybe instead of ploughing the field's good enough, and then they'll drop the seeds in, and then they'll drop in some fertiliser. So it's all very, all in one machine. A lot of the history of farming machineries is combining the tools into one device. Then you've got the harvesting. If they're cutting at the bottom of the stalk, that's reaping, and then you thresh the stalk to pull out the grain. If they're doing the top of it, that's the stripping, where they just cut off the head, and then you just winnow, which is basically you're throwing it up in the air to get the chaff to blow off. So, yeah, the other key innovation following that was the move from having an operator ride on the plough to the tractor operator controlling them. So that's basically, you look at the current catalogues for your ploughs, and a lot of them are almost bloody identical to something produced 100 years ago. The only difference is where the person's riding and the size of the frames. As the tractors get stronger, the ploughs get heavier and stronger and wider. You've seen it in cars, so early stump jumpers. Oops. So the cultivators, and that's the next part, is cultivators. So the cultivators are basically there to break up the soil into smaller pieces, to condition that soil, but not to turn it over so that you're not losing the moisture of the soil. And then your disc harrow, so very much an evolution of going from 1 width to 2 to 5 to 9 to a lot. Then the rollers, you're getting, sometimes after you've gone through and broken up the subsoil, you need to compact the topsoil to get the best planing condition. So you're getting rollers, and that's again a Duncan Models kit, that one of the ones I'd ordered, and still being used. Seeding, that, as I said, we've gone from throwing seeds everywhere to very specific machines to cultivate the ground, to drill the soil, the seeding, get it in the right frequency, right spacing, and put in the right amount of fertiliser in at the same time. So that's the sunshine harvester combination from those years. That's in Henty. There's a large museum in Henty for people who want to go and take notes. This is a picture of the Waterloo Boy, which was bought by Deere eventually. The picture on the left is from a Dom Winton kit in 1/48. I've yet to put together, but it's been around for a long time. The Fordson, now, really caused an explosive growth in the tractor market, and enabled, forage production methods enabled the market to continue. It was enough to get Ford effectively out of the Ford Motor Company and into the Ford and Sons, manufacturing company, which produced these paper tractors. But they were basically post World War I when they were released to the market in bulk. He didn't really ever improve them very much, and so by the 1940s they were dead in the water, and Ford lost their position in the market. So it's funny how things happen.
I want to turn back the clock a little. Let's go back 12 months, actually almost exactly, Saturday the 1st of March 2014, we held a O-scale exhibition. It was the scale model is now, or Model O kids. If you're interested, the full video, which is still available on YouTube. Just search for OS Kits Aus7 Expo with an O HD and you'll find it. It was an absolute disaster. We heard that Hattons were closing down, and this really bothered a lot of people, not just in the UK, where obviously it had the biggest impact, but even here in Australia. Have a look at the middle of that thing. Goodbye from Hattons, 1946 to 2024. 77 years this company has been around, and although there's been some succession within the family, it's essentially the same company. It's not terribly surprising that they decided maybe now is the time to stop. Maybe now not go on anymore. We don't go on forever. At these forums over 10 years ago, we typically had 50 or 60 people. If you look around the room, we know a lot of the people who were there who are no longer with us, and some are sick, and there's all sorts of other reasons. So these things change. It's not terribly surprising when you think about it, why things change. But, so things were, were they really as bad as that? We heard about all these things happening, and then within a few weeks, it all started to almost swing back to a certain extent. We heard that the big exhibition at Worley that had been going for a long time, I think about 40 years, if anybody had ever been there, incredible model railway exhibition, which always used to have a full-scale locomotive there as part of the exhibition. Incredible thing, but an enormously complicated and difficult exhibition to mount. Talk to Trevor about mounting difficult exhibitions. This is really difficult. Not surprising, people got to a stage where they said, we don't think we can do this anymore. However, Morley, the club, the Model Railway Club that was behind it, are still going to continue, but in a slightly different way. And then another group, one of the big British Model Railway magazine and Railway magazine groups, they stepped up and said, we'll run a new version of the big exhibition that was held in Birmingham every year. So it kind of goes on. So one bit fades away, and then here's a new product, the Aegis 5-amp wireless system for the NCE Power Cup. It comes from our friends at DTC Concepts, formerly of Western Australia and now of the UK. And that's what it looks like. All sorts of good goodies. There's a panel, I'll just go through this here. There's a rather fancy panel with lots of switches on it, and sockets and lights and things, all made of aluminium. Looks good. And you can connect it to the track, you can have it connected to the main track, you can connect it to the program track. And when it's all said and done, even though it's got a few fancy tricks on the way in terms of having individual program tracks and main tracks, all it really does is to give you a wireless capability on your NCE power cap. It gets all those other attractive little things as well, but that's essentially what it does. And here's an example how you can use it with a number of other accessories that DCC Concepts all make. Some people might find this tremendously useful. The added ability of having a wireless operation might be particularly useful. I think I could buy 2 NCE power caps and it would be the same price, but I'm not sure that I quite see the point. I guess I'm not the target market for this particular product. Now, at a completely different price point altogether, completely opposite from $800, I recently found these brass dowel pins. These are the sorts of things that you can use. You don't have to use them. You can just rely on bolts and alignment, but you can use to help align different panels or different sections of a layout together. Quite inexpensive, 10 pieces. $6, and in this case $3.30, I think, delivery. We've talked, or I've talked a couple of times in the past about the connection between the tender and the loco. We've used an IC connector strip, which we've been using for many years, which you cut up and because it operates as both the male or the female part, so you can make a 5-pin socket, which is the most common. We normally need a 5-pin socket, 2 to pick up track power from the wheels on the tender, and 3 wires to cover red and white marker lights. If you need a rear light on the back of the loco, most Australian locos don't, but if you do, then you obviously need 6 pins, but normally 5 pins is enough. So here's a new suggestion, and I'll pass this around. It's a 5-pin magnetic pogo type pin connector. These are very tiny. If you put your fingernail in between them as I pass it around, you can pull the 2 parts apart.
AliExpress again?
AliExpress, look at the price, $2.37, and I seem to remember in this case I think there was
It's magnetic, that's great.
they're magnetic. They're really, really good alignment, they work well. They're available in many different versions, but that's the 5-pin one, which is probably the most useful. I've previously mentioned the Nami decoders from soundtracks, talked about them and what they perhaps could be used for. I also mentioned that I had a coffee pot rail car and I thought maybe we could put all these together. So I thought, well, I'll ask AI, I'll give AI another try. I told AI, look, this is what I want. It's a coffee pot rail motor running across a bridge. So let's that's not quite what I had in mind.
Interpretation.
It is pretty good. I like that. So I'll accept that.
Not quite there yet.
It was interesting, but not terribly helpful.
Nobody's going to laugh at it.
Now, some people have asked me, what am I doing and what's this new layout that I've been making? Why did I make this new layout? We need content for 7th Heaven. That's why I made the layout. I've written articles in 7th Heaven, most of you know, on lots of things, putting DCC in logos, all sorts of various articles. And I've written a couple of articles about building layouts before, 2 different layouts, and I thought we'd have a go at making another one, only this time something a lot smaller and based upon what I had. So you'd end up with a DCC locomotive without the DCC system, so you save a whole lot of money. This is why I built it. A small, simple O-scale layout. It is an O-scale, it's only 30 in this case. And of course it's 148 because the coffee pot is 148, not 143. The initial inspiration was that photograph, which is a still from a YouTube clip which was posted, I've forgotten now, someone a few years ago. I've never been to Pitchy Ritchie, which is where it is, so I only had the pictures. But that was the thing that inspired me, and if you've read the articles, I hope you have, over the last 3 issues you know quite a bit about it. And that was inspired me. Now my apologies, the coffee pot is not weathered. It should be. I have that yet to do, but the publication deadline was such that I couldn't get that finished in time to finish the article. And the other side of it, of Pitchy Ritchie, is the place where people get onto the coffee pot now, at the Woolshed flat, which is some distance away from the bridge. But of course I'm going to put them all in a tiny little layout, all together. Now the layout, as seen from above, that's the entire layout, just seen from above. It's very small, it's 1,600 metres long and 1,000 millimetres, sorry, did I say metres? That's 1,600 millimetres, 1.6 metres and 1 metre wide. And it's actually made in 2 sections, and those who've read the articles will know this. It is actually a straight join. It looks as if it's all weighted because of the terrain, but the actual join is straight. And if we have a look at that second smaller piece, it looks like that. In theory, it's got pickup from the wheels on the carriage as well, but that's not very effective. I'm going to have to fix that, but it does work okay. What's fun? Thanks.
Yeah.